Welcome to this latest edition of Ril Dil podcast with Ril Joe Quinn on this 2nd of December 2021 as we discuss the world of sports and pop culture tonight after a mega podcast with one Robert Sapp. Certainly check that out when you get a chance to we're in depth terms of talking about Week 12 in the NFL, and we covered a lot of ground. If you're a Patriots fan, it was probably like just you should be, thanking us endlessly for how much Patriot love that was given on that podcast. Um, Check it out. Robert Sapp has some interesting thoughts about the Patriots and why the league should be very afraid moving forward about where the New England Patriots are right now. We had, of course, our biggest disappointments, real or not. So check out that podcast when you get a chance to. But right now, we are here. It's all about Insecure, season 5, episode 6. Tired, okay. This was directed by Natasha Rothwell, who of course plays Kelly. And there was, of course, this episode was again, for the second straight week, a heavy Issa Molly episode, which is no surprise. I mean, those are the two. Issa and Molly are the two biggest are the two leading characters on this show. Even though and the show really centers around them, around those two, and it has been for the past 5 seasons. So you got Issa and Molly, you got no Kelly, no Kelly, no Tiffany. Um, the cliffhanger that we left off last episode with Issa seeing Lawrence and Condola at the hospital basically turned out to be a dream. Um, yes, Issa see them at the hospital, yes, but there was no conversation whatsoever. There was no conversation, and they basically did a bunch of different dream sequences where Issa, one sequence, Issa, basically shoots the baby like a fade, like a basketball with a fadeaway. And you knew something. You kind of knew something was up uh, when Condola, basically offer Issa, say, Issa, do you want to hold him? And it was like, it's little. I know they used to be friends the previous season at the beginning, but it's like something wasn't right. Like this. I wasn't even thinking dream sequence, but I didn't. Something was a little off there. But and then of course it turns out to be a dream. And Issa, shoots the baby like a basketball, and then kicks Condola and laughs, and then and then laughs in real life. She laughs after that, and of course we saw another dream sequence later on at the end of the episode where Condola got her revenge against Issa, as Issa is daydreaming again about Condola and Lawrence, and Condola basically said how great Lawrence was doing. Um, he's making basically $1 billion a month, and then basically she's getting the sex from Lawrence that Issa was previously getting. And again, this is on this, and we'll talk about this. This, of course, is in direct as a direct result of where Issa and Nathan are at right now, which is not a good place. We'll talk more about that. And of course, the big reveal in this episode in regards to the Nathan Condola Issa situation is the fact that uh, not Nathan, the Lawrence Condola Issa is the fact that Lawrence has moved back to Los Angeles. So that was the big kind of reveal from that standpoint. Issa was on Lawrence's Instagram, and she found out he moved back to Los Angeles. Now, who knows? We can assume it was to be close to Elijah. That doesn't mean that Lawrence and Condola are an item or their relationship is great. It just means that he's closer to his son. But of course, that along with what was going on with Nathan, really had Issa, really all over the place in this particular episode. Some of the best scenes, the Issa Nathan love scene. So uh, Issa is on top of Nathan. Nathan, she's riding him, and she basically just basically begs him to tell her that he loves her. And Nathan doesn't. He doesn't say it, and it gets kind of awkward, sort of awkward. Um, it did not look like they. I'll put it this way: it didn't look like Nathan was exactly enjoying the sex. To be honest with you, it didn't. It looked, this, Issa again. And we said this in previous episodes. I've said this the last two episodes that this relationship going to work. The chemistry is not there. Nathan clearly doesn't love Issa. Issa really doesn't love Nathan. She loves that. She loves the ideal of being in a relationship, but she doesn't love Nathan. Basically, she's using him to fill the void that was left. Of course, uh, the void that was left from her previous relationship with Lawrence. Oh, so this is not going to end well for either one of them. Um, Again, the scene was hilarious and sad at the same time. Sad from the standpoint of you have a situation where if you have a situation where you have two people, again, two highly insecure people, and you for the most part, you think you're supposed to enjoy sex. It did not look enjoyable for either one of them, especially Nathan. Molly and Torian. So Molly goes on this retreat, and her mom is still in critical condition. Somewhat has stabilized. She's still relatively unconscious. She's at the retreat. She's feeling somewhat guilty about being at the retreat with her coworkers, all expenses paid, retreat, luxury. They're doing, this work slash retreat, which to me, I want to say somebody who's been on multiple retreats. There's no work that's being. You can't do any real work on a retreat. I'm sorry, I just can't. I've never understood the idea of of a work retreat. I just couldn't get any work. I just could not do work and try to relax at the same time. It just doesn't. It frankly doesn't work for me. But you have a situation where again, she's with some coworkers, and her and Torian, who is a character who in previous seasons that they didn't get along, they're on good terms. They have a scene where they really kind of like get to know each other from a on a human level. Molly finally not breaks down in terms of crying, but shares to Torian that mom had a stroke. This is after he was like, he criticized her for outshining, for basically saying, look, you never let me. It's been a long time since you let me outshine you like that in a particular meeting. Molly's mind, of course, is all over the place. Her mother just had a stroke, and she didn't have her best performance in a presentation, and Torian basically had to carry the presentation, and he lets her know about it, and then she tells him that her mom is sick, her mom had a stroke, and of course, and he completely changes course in terms of his attitude and was more than empathetic with Molly, and they have a productive conversation and begin what may who knows what may be a future relationship. We don't know. Um, Molly Molly also really lets her hair down with her coworkers. She gets drunk, they get drunk, and at first you're thinking that did she sleep with one of her coworkers? That wasn't the case, as there was a watch in her bed, but then we come to find out that she just got drunk and basically she got drunk, passed out. Torian left his watch or whatever in the room. I don't know. It still looked kind of suspicious. Like he had to be in the room. Did she take his watch off during when she was dancing? It was a lot of crazy stuff can happen when you're drunk and things get missing and you don't know what happened. But Molly basically really showed her ass. Um, Figuratively showed her ass during that as they had on videotape, during this little drinking binge, during this wild party night that they had. Showed a part of her that had never been seen before, that her coworkers had never seen before, and it's kind of, you can look at this as a form of growth for Molly as far as her, this transformation that she's been going through. in past seasons, she would have never done that in front of her coworkers. She always had that kind of like business, like stoic type figure or she was just frankly, and frankly, the company bitch. I mean, so that I mean, in a real way, from the standpoint of that, in terms of how she acted, in terms of how she acted, and they told stories. Her coworkers told stories when they were describing when she first got there, and they said, "Yeah, this is how you really were. Like you were doing too much. You were, extra up. Just too serious, extra up, very uptight. Um, borderline on anal. So again, this is a part of. It seems like this is a part of Molly's growth and transformation as we get closer and closer as we get closer and closer towards the end of this series. Nathan and Suge in the barbershop. So um, you have this employee, they have this guy named Suge who seems to be a necessary headache. He's a horrible employee as far as showing up on time, disrespecting his coworkers, eating their food, doing wild shit. But he's bringing in high profile clientele. Like, they say he brought in like James Harden and some other celebrities. So they keep him around from that standpoint. But everybody in the shop has really had it up to here with him. He gets into it with Nathan. Nathan calls him out. He gets upset with Nathan because he was supposed to he was late for a client and Nathan cuts his client's hair. Now, I've heard that rule before in barber. That is a real thing with barbers. Like you don't even if a guy is running late, you don't take his customer. You don't cut another barber's customer's head once a barber has established a relationship with a particular clientele. And every barber has, like, I have a specific barber that I go to that I just don't mess, I don't let anybody touch my hair, cut my hair. So every barber, every person that gets their haircut has their specific barber. Just nowadays, more likely, more now than ever. Um, Used to be a time that people just would go to you just was looking for the first barber that was open, but it seems like now in 2021 that that people are looking for this for a specific barber, and barbers of course, know their clientele. That's how they make money. He comes in the shop late, and he says, Nate's gonna pay my rent because his booth rent was due. Nate's gonna pay it. Nate's like, nah, basically Nate's laughed like that's not gonna happen. They get into it. He calls out Nathan, not Nate, but Nathan for being bipolar. So he taps in. He tries to open that wound. Calls him soft. Um, they go back and forth. They seemingly was about to get into seemingly was about to fight, but Nathan kind of backed away. And everybody went about their business. Yeah, I don't. I guess I don't know if this scene was necessarily needed. To be honest with you, I really don't care about outside Nathan. I really don't care about the characters inside the barbershop. I know, and I know Risha's funny, but she's an attractive girl who cracks a couple jokes. The barbershop storyline I don't particularly care for. Like this is a scene that they could have really did without. To me, we know Nathan is bipolar. We know he has mental health issues. They dealt with that in the previous episode. That they did a much better job in the previous episode dealing with it when his cousin came clean about why he wanted Nathan out the house. That he was actually the actual person that had Nathan removed from the house. So I didn't need to the mental health, the mental illness reveal for Nathan is done. We didn't need to go there again with another character that we frankly don't care about. We don't care about shit. So they definitely could have did without. Uh, Again, overall, I thought this was a solid episode. Um, we also had Issa and Crenshaw uh, get into it. And it seems like that relationship is not going to be rectified anytime soon. The last thing I want to talk about, the Issa Nathan argument, and it, again, this thing is not going to end well. And basically, he calls Issa out. Issa tries to, say, "Hey, you haven't told me you love me," and Nathan's like, "You kind of been inconsistent. Acting one way 1 minute versus you've been inconsistent with with your behavior in terms of this relationship." And he's kind of right. He's kind of right from that standpoint. But again, no, you can understand why a lot of people don't like this relationship because we know how it's going to end, and they want to just get directly. They want more interaction from Issa and Lawrence. But again, I just don't think that the show is going to go in that direction of Issa and Lawrence getting back together. I just don't think that's going to happen. Again, I'm very interested to see what they do with Issa and Lawrence moving forward and how that dynamic is going to go. I don't think they're going to get back together. Um, as far as the MVP goes in the episode, I thought Molly was the MVP of the episode. She didn't carry the episode, but she was in a number of key scenes. Her kind of guilt, and again, her kind of the guilt that she's feeling with her mom being sick. And by the way, her mom does open her eyes and kind of acknowledges Molly towards the end of the episode. Towards the end of the episode, when she was on the phone with her brother, when Molly was on the phone with her brother Curtis. So I'll say Molly by default was the MVP of this episode. Nobody really, to be honest with you, I don't think nobody really stood out like that. But by default, I would put Molly as the MVP. As we continue to see her transformation into being a regular human being and not this just strictly career driven woman who can't maintain a steady relationship. So I think that's again, if I'm making a prediction for future episodes, and we're halfway through the season, we have 5 more episodes left. I think Molly by the end of the season will be in a solid committed relationship. So I think I don't think they're gonna again. I've already predicted that they're gonna kill Kelly. I've already predicted that Issa and Lawrence are gonna have a falling out or not gonna get back together. I don't think it's gonna be all doom and gloom. I think there's something, there has to be a little bit of balance in these characters and their future endeavors and their lives as we wonder about their lives past this fifth season. Like what would life look like for Issa moving forward? What would life look like for these other characters? I think Molly will be in a committed relationship before this by the end of the season. Overall, again, Natasha Rockwell, who's a producer on the show, had a very nice touch with with the comedy and with her basically holding Issa accountable. He's in one of the last scenes with Issa and Condola in the dream sequence. Condola says basically to Issa, own your choices. Like you make a decision, stand by your decision, or you could take it as, hey, be willing to deal with the smoke that may come from that decision. That's how I kind of took it. That's how I kind of took it. That's gonna wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast, Insecure Season 5, Episode 6. Tired, okay. I will have this podcast up before the end of the night. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of the evening.